400 grit, Duragold. It does have a backing on it. I believe the care back does not. But the care back's been pretty good and I like it. Sorry about the shaking there, we'll get that a little better. So if you leave this out and it gets all dusty or something, you're not going to have a problem with it. And the sandpaper is in instead of out. But I mean, once it's stuck to something, that don't matter. It's just different. But yeah, they got all their markings on it, Duragold, P400. Okay, so what we got here is we got a 63 Cadillac door. The door has been, let's bring you this way, and I'll come in from the side. Now you can see by the light, even if I move it, there's quite a bit of orange peel on the door. Alright, we'll try to concentrate on that area right through here. You can actually see that there's orange peel. What else can we see when we look at the door? A lot of deep sanding swirls and marks and stuff. Might have to give this another coat, but just to give us an idea how good this paper is. Now, in case you're wondering, this isn't a polyester high build or anything super fancy and super soft. This is CRE321. You can get it in black. It's called CRE921. But it's a hybrid epoxy. So if you don't break through anywhere, you can paint right over it. But if you break through, then you should seal the spots. I gotta tell you what, I thought that the peel and marks would be deep, but we'll keep going. And I mean, now, normally I hit this with probably a 220, a 320, and then a 400. 400 is what this is, and that's usually what we want it finished, because our paint calls for a 400 to 500 grit. Translation is 400 as it wears becomes less, right? So there's your 4 to 500. I mean, you could use 500, and it'd probably be fine as long as you kept your paper sharp. Now, for some paints, they call for 800 and 600 or whatever. And I mean, I'm basing that off videos, but anything I've ever used, it's usually 400 or 500, so. Now, I'm not a waterborne guy, so that could be why. In my area, I'm okay with a low VOC solvent-based, solvent-borne paint. I'll tell you what, that's not bad. Now, normally I would recommend, if you're blocking, use two hands when you can. I had to put a bit of filler on that edge. I don't know if you can see that. There, now you can. So if you look right here, you'll see it's still shiny. There's a little low spot there, and maybe we can get it out, but we won't force it down because we don't want to warp it. We want it to be flat. But as we come across and take more material off, we can come back, because you want to take it all off so that it's straight, hence why you would block to begin with. Now normally I'd also use a longer block. and sharper grip. But this is just to give you a bit of a torture test on whether or not this Duragold is any good. Now, two things to look for. The main one is your sharpness. You know, if it maintains its sharpness for a while, that's definitely good. I tried a Samite paper. Now, that wasn't for blocking, that was on a DA. But what I found with the Samite paper is it was good, but you go through a lot of it. So if you go through a lot of it, Scotch-Brite just wiped some of it off. Still feels plenty sharp. I'll move over a touch just to see what it'll do here. And again, I'm not trying to go real crazy taking the door down here. We're just going to do a kind of a normal torture test on the paper. Now it is a shorter block, so I'm going to go across because, I mean, if this turns out good and the paper's fine, maybe it'll land where we need it to. But I have a feeling I'll have to go to at least a 320, if not a 220. Take it down. Because there's definitely some low spots. Just using this to take the excess off. You don't want to kill it completely, but now you want to look at that. If you get little hard spots like that, take them out. Anyway, good enough. You don't want to be dragging a hard piece through. Now keep in mind this primer, I find as you're sanding it, it's soft. So even those little bits, like they just won't allow you to go even. But if you're blocking into a harder product, same rules would apply, but that little hard part might put scratches in it. So as you're trying to straighten it out, you could be making it worse. I like doing videos showing off sandpapers, and the reason why, especially if you don't know, they're not all created equal. And I mean, everyone tells you that theirs is the best, which, you know, they want to make money, so it is what it is. But, you know, before you try 15 different kinds of sandpaper, you know, if there's a few videos of something half decent, might guide you in the right way. Now, the one thing with sandpaper off Amazon, there's a lot of unknown companies. I'm going to tell you what, the fact that I've made it that far down the door and it's still cutting and taking the orange peel out, and there was a significant amount of it. I'm going to say this paper is definitely half decent. Because there's a few sandpapers where if I would have gotten as far as I've gotten right now, there's a body line here, and it disappears. So I'm going to keep my hand here because I don't want to go past. And I'm just moving back and forth an inch at a time because this isn't a long block. So the longer the block, the flatter you can technically get. What you don't want to do is say you had a low and just, because these Durablocks do have, well, they say they have some flex. There's really not much there, but you get the idea. You don't want to just stay here and sand a hole into your panel. So I'm only moving a little bit at a time. Most of my force is here, but the whole block is cut in the panel. Now here we're gonna have to block here and then blocking here separate. We'll probably get one of our little Durablocks that's real flat. We'll finish out this edge, we'll take it this way, but then, you know, we'll have to block it in every which way to make sure the transition is decent. So now I'm coming right up to that line. Feels different as soon as it gets a little plugged up. But again, this paper's not that bad. Expect, you know, the smaller grips to plug up fairly quick. Yeah, there's a lot of cheap papers in 400 grit. That would be plugged up and there'd be no saving it. Now, some people would argue the moment it's plugged up, rip it, put a new one on. But again, don't, you know, sand it with this. This is just a red Scotch-Brite that was gently used. I'm not hitting it hard, I'm just taking a little bit out. So if I come here, it's super sharp, but I can feel it pulling on my skin. And that's a judgment call. You're gonna have to kind of figure that out. I think it's still plenty sharp, but there's gonna be a point where it's not, and I'll change it out. But you'll feel it because when it isn't cutting, it won't feel the same. So that's something you're gonna kind of have to learn. I hope I'm articulating that fairly well. Now, to get that line, I'm simply, see it's round, I'm just keeping this line in. So we got to get in there, and we want it to be straight and flat. And then we're going to come this way and that way another time just to make sure we didn't like burn a little bit of a flat spot in it. The reveal here isn't crazy, so we'll probably be all right, but you know, sometimes there's more of it. And I mean, getting these panels as flat as possible is the key. I mean, a paint job can be mediocre, but if your panel is super duper flat, it'll look better than it is. Another thing to consider is your shrinkage when you do high builds and whatnot. Now people say don't wait to sand your primer too long, because if you wait too long, it gets too hard. This product has been sitting for, I'm going to say 8 weeks. And I mean, it's blocking out just fine. I still got that low here. You can see it right here where it's shiny. Got to take quite a bit of material down here. I can judge that by the orange peel. So with a little luck, once we do that and come back over it one more time. Now you saw I went straight and I kept slowly inching it over, and then I went on an angle to make sure that, you know, whatever we take off will blend in. You want to go in all the directions. So I'm going at a certain speed and jumping ahead a little at a time. I'm not doing this. I'm keeping it on the panel. And I know I've got quite a bit of material. And the door's swinging, and if it's moving, it is what it is. Sometimes when a door is on a car, it'll be easier to block because it can't move. but you're gonna be doing stuff on the car, off the car, so you're gonna have to adapt. There's barely any here now. So as I come up from the bottom, we'll be okay. Now this is what I wanted to show. If you look right here, the primer's become transparent. You can almost see through it. You can see a little bit of the pink and white in there. So that was underneath. We're done. That's as far as that goes. We can come on this edge a touch, but not a whole lot. I don't think we'll need to. There's a little bit right there. Now if this was a show car, I wouldn't even touch up that edge. I'd have to put more primer on and do it again because we'd want it like absolutely perfect. So this is going to be like a weekend show car, you know, show and shines and that sort of thing. He's going to actually drive this car. Yeah, might have to do a bit of work there, but we'll see as we come up from the bottom. We took a lot of material off. There was 2 coats, 3 coats. So we did 1 coat. I'm gonna say medium wet, and then a heavy coat at the end. There was hollow spots around these. So there's still a little bit here and here, so that's got to either come down. But if it starts going like this where we can see through it, that's where we want to stop unless we want to reprime everything. And a little breakthrough, again, you can put some sealer on. That's pretty low, so now that this is good, I was concentrating up here. Now I'm going to concentrate in this area. And the paper's still cleaning up, not too bad. What I like with this stuff is it shows you where it goes light and dark, where your orange peel is, so you know exactly where you got to do the work. But keep in mind, you don't want to just dig. You want to dig and move. So they're still cut. When I say cut, it means sharpness. It almost stings as you pull it across your skin lightly, and that's what you're looking for. Like you want it to drag your skin. That means it's cut enough that it can actually grab. Once it won't do that, you're not cutting material away. You're just going over it and putting lines on it and kind of, you know, it won't do a great job. Packing quick, we're done. So that's how far we got. We're going to need to do this with another sheet of paper, maybe twice, and that'll get the whole door. Of course, down in here there's a groove. We'll have to go in there with a round block. So 1 sheet of paper to do this, another one up here. You know, time to change our paper. So honestly, it's not the best, but it's not terrible. It's in the middle of the road. It's half decent. I'm happy with it for the price. It was a lot cheaper than what you're going to get at the automotive store. So we used basically a 12-inch Durablock, 400 grit. That's your paper. It's okay. It's not the best. It's not like Norton Gold. It's not like Cubitron or something like that. But it's decent. It's decent. You know, it's cheap. You'll use a little more of it, but I think it'd be worth it. I mean, if you pay half as much money, but you got to switch it out twice as much, you're technically spending the same money. And what I found with a few of them, especially when you go on the palm sanders, you want to make sure that you're switching it out and keeping it sharp. And like I said before, we tried a Sandmite product, and I really like, and I like Sandmite for some stuff, like for this stuff. I've used it and it was okay, but for some reason, as soon as you put it on the DA, I found I was chewing through paper like crazy. So, you know, the Norton Gold is definitely better. I did another review of some sandpapers, and we used Carabac, also from Amazon. And also, let me grab some packaging here. I kept these around just for you guys. So for the palm sander, PowerTech. This PowerTech stuff is fine. It's not the best, but it's decent, and it stays cutting for a while. And then we have this Carabac. I use a lot of it. It's good. The only thing I don't like with the Carabac, unlike the one we're using today, the Duragold, is it doesn't have this paper protecting it. It's literally just wrapped on itself. So if you left it out and it popped open and a bunch of dust got on it, it is not going to be sticky. But anyway, so those three brands seem to work really well from Amazon so far. Like, I'd say they're reasonable. You will change the paper out a little more often, but not so much that it'll be expensive. It's going to be a little cheaper to run. And the way I look at it, honestly, is as long as it's good enough to do the job, even if I got to change it out, that's fine. What I don't like is some papers are inconsistent, not very good. I'm not seeing that with these three products so far. They seem to be good enough to do what they're doing. But that could change. Things could change. Everything these days, right, made by the lowest bidder. So keep that in mind. If a product starts to suck, switch to another. Anyway, hopefully that was helpful. Now you will see sand marks in it, but it's put something here for focus. But yeah, you could paint right on top of this surface here and have no issues with that. But what you got to watch for is, if you look here, so those are low spots. Those will show through. That being said, we blocked pretty heavy here, and then here we kind of tapered it. The last we were concentrating on up here, now we're going to concentrate here, and I'm pretty sure we got enough material to get that out. Not sure that we're getting this one out because it feels like there's quite a welt there. That one will come out. That one will come out. That one will be fine. A little more work to do on this one, but it'll come out because we still got to come up here as hard as we did the top. Now, another truth you should know, this was just a test 400, and like I said, normally I would have hit this probably with 320 because this is actually sanding good. So now that I know that, I got the other door there and I've got a bunch of panels, I'll probably block them down with 320, and then we'll go over it with the 400. And in that case, the 400 will last a long time. Like, we're doing excessive work. The whole point was to torture test the paper and see. And honestly, even right now, like, there's cut. It's not amazing cut, so I'm going to change it anyway, but there's still cut. It was still working, but it was starting to pack kind of quicker. So once it starts to pack, you want to get rid of it. And you don't want to go as far as to where there's absolutely no cut, because then you're just going over it and you're not really sanding anything. And it is vital that you're cutting this down. You're basically planing the top off until you have one uniform surface. And like I say, you can be like a mediocre to less than mediocre painter, but if your bodywork is very, very straight and flat, the vehicle at the end, when you're standing at this distance looking at it, it's going to look better. Even if you totally botch a paint job, if it's on a super flat, real nice surface, it won't look as bad as if you have bad bodywork and then bad paint work on top. So what I'm saying is, you know, you can be a mediocre painter, and, you know, I'm talking in generalities, but you get the idea. So the smoother the bodywork, the nicer the car is. You know, you can get away with a lot more. And I mean, especially on a daily driver, because a lot of guys are like, well, the paint don't have to be 100%. It has to be good, you know, spray, shoot, and is it good enough to drive? I don't like to cut and buff every single job. I don't like to do that. I feel like it takes away some of the properties of, you know, your finish, where you want a little bit of UV protection and whatnot. Like they say, when you read the fine print, it goes up to the surface when it hardens. Well, if you do a cut and buff and take that down and then buff it, it'll be shiny, but that's gone. Now you're depending on the waxes and different things. Now for a show car, that's important because you want to take it down and make it as flat as you can. And you're never going to get it, I believe you'll never get it quite as glassy as a smooth job that you walk away from. However, just like the bodywork I explained earlier being flatter, making other things look good, the flatter that surface will make up for the shine. But now you've got to depend on, say, something good like Mother's Carnauba. I like Mother's, and the reason why is because in the body shop, if you got to fix something later, it's body shop friendly, it cleans up. Some waxes don't, but if everything is flat and the shine is decent after it's cut and buffed, you can put a wax on, and you know, there's various products that make it look really, really good and bring back that gloss. So it's a lot of extra work because you're showing off the car in a high-end environment to people who may judge the car. But if you're going to the local fairgrounds just to park and talk to car guys and cars and coffee, and you want to rip around with it a bit, that's the kind of stuff I do, just so that we're aware. Like, you know, not everything is SEMA or Autorama quality, because people actually drive the cars that I work on. So that's what I like to do. But yeah, that paper is totally fine, and I've never used it before. I just read the reviews, used a bit of common sense, and there's a few clues in there where a few guys had talked about it, and it seemed like they were possibly professional. You can tell how people talk. But the reviews weren't terrible. And you can't just go by the 5-star, 4-star, 3-star. Like, you're going to get 4, 4.5 on something. It's a good place to start. But when you read, just watch the words, you know, how people talk. If it sounds like they're in an environment where they're doing it every day all the time, that guy's advice to me is probably a little better than, yeah, I tried it on my, you know, 14-year-old, whatever, and it didn't work really good for me. Well, but do you know what you're doing, right? So you got to watch reviews that way. So if you're going to read them, read a lot of them. Don't get too concerned about one negative review and a sea of good reviews. But some guys will say, hey, I sand in the shop all day long and this stuff is okay. Well, he just told you, you know, he possibly does that all day long. So maybe that's what you got to take. But anyway, the Carabac is half decent. The Duragold is half decent. And the PowerTech seems to be okay. So there you go. Cheers.